So today we're talking about Face-to-Face Intermediate, the second edition. This is my, I think, second copy of the second edition. It's well worn. I do like this book. There are some parts of it that are below average. Overall, I think it's a good book, especially when compared to its competitors. This book is strong in its choice of vocabulary. I really like the words that Chris Redston and Julie Cunningham, I like the words and the phrases that they focus on to teach at this level. I think it's interesting, and it's more interesting than many other textbooks that I've seen, and that's one of the reasons I use it. The functional language is interesting. It's genuinely interesting and useful. The vocab practice for the language in this book is weak. It is very, very, very weak. The standard, let's go to 4B, right? 4B is, what is it, personality, character vocab, right? So I'll just quote it right now. Work in pairs. Which of these character adjectives do you know? Then look up the new words in the back of the book. Okay, so then we'll go to the back of the book, 135. Let's see what's going on there. 135. Okay, so 4B. Okay, then we just have definitions. We just have definitions. And that's it. That's it. We just have definitions and we have 6 pictures. The vocabulary is good. Adventurous, talented, sensible, stubborn, ambitious, generous, optimistic, pessimistic. So the vocab itself is good. The practice is non-existent. There's no practice of almost any level that would help a student fluently use the vocabulary. The word choice is great. The practice is very weak. Almost non-existent. As I said many times already, I use this book myself and my teachers use it too. So here's how I recommend a teacher use this book. Relying on the grammar explanations of Face-to-Face or any Cambridge book that I've seen usually is not worth it. It's not worth it. It's either overly complicated or overly simplified, and it just doesn't fit. So as a teacher, I recommend bringing in extra practice with vocabulary first, and then bringing in your own grammar explanations and some supplementary materials that will make the class more effective for your students. If you only use what's in the book, the students will have an idea of what the language is, what the vocabulary is at this level. But the goal of the teacher is to make the students speak. To make that possible, you have to bring in extra materials. My favorite lesson in this book, I think it is by far the best section of this textbook, is 4D. So 4D goes over this functional language of softening opinions and making generalizations. Now, the language is really interesting and it's really useful because right now I'm teaching in Russia, and Russians are much more direct than British people or Americans are. So the language is incredibly important, and here's how I go about teaching it. So I start off with American stereotypes. I say, okay, what are some American stereotypes? Americans are stupid, Americans are fat. Oh, and it's funny because they're not offending me, whatever. Then we go, ooh, you can't say Americans are fat, you can't just say that. Then we go through the language. Perhaps many Americans tend to be a bit overweight. So it's a much more polite way of saying something that is true, but you don't want to offend anybody. That's why I really like 4D. It's incredibly useful, incredibly realistic, and unnatural. It's an unnatural way of speaking for many people outside of British and American culture. This is my favorite book that I've found for adults at an intermediate level, and overall I would give it a 3.5 out of 5. Because I do find it very necessary for me to bring in extra materials, extra explanations. The structure of the book, it is logical on its face value, but I don't see a great build-up from section to section in the minds of the students. So the sections are disparate, so I jump around the book a lot, and otherwise the vocab, again, is great. The grammar that they go through in the book is level appropriate. The question is, how does the book stand by itself? And that's what gives it a 3.5. It's good if you have a lot of extra materials, and it's better than most everything I've seen at this level. Again, 3.5 because by itself it doesn't stand up very, very strong.